So in 2019, I came dangerously close to taking my life. I was super embarrassed. I was humiliated. I was ashamed. I didn't know what my life was going to look like after that. He said, Tommy, if you would just come back and be vulnerable and talk about your story and your struggles, because you have no idea the people you're going to help. So I was the first one from my department to go get help. But with me coming back and starting to open up and sharing my stories, 4 other guys came to me, and 4 other guys ended up in Maryland shortly after that. I see it now. I didn't see it then. But vulnerability is not weakness. When I was vulnerable and I opened up about my stuff, that's when the true healing really started for me, when I started confronting those demons.
Welcome to Respond to Resilience, along with Bonnie Rumley, LCSW EMT. I'm David Dashinger. Today, our guest is Lieutenant Tommy Bolin. He's a dedicated firefighter and paramedic from Central Ohio, and he's going to focus on the hidden battles that many first responders face but seldom discuss. We're going to talk about his profound book, Unseen Battles, The Price of Duty in a Life of Trauma and Sacrifice, where Tommy shines a light on the mental health struggles that lurk beneath the surface of public service. We're going to talk about the unseen toll of duty, personal identity crises that arise, and the healing that can unfold when we dare to break the silence.
Thanks to our resource partner, EMS and Fire Pro Expo, the largest gathering of EMS and fire professionals in New England, September 24 through 27, 2025, at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Sign up at emspro.org.
There's a new app built by firefighters for firefighters, and it's called Crackle. Download the app now for free as a Legacy member and get early access to exclusive content, tools, and updates as they drop. Get the free app at crackle.respondertv.com.
Thanks also to our resource partner, FightCamp. For free shipping and a free month of membership, go to joinfightcamp.com/shop and use the code RRPONE.
We'll be right back to speak with Tommy right after this.
In this family, more of us die by our own hands than by the hazards of the job.
In this family, up to a quarter of 911 telecommunicators have symptoms of post-traumatic stress.
In this family, our mental health and wellness are in crisis,
while responders are quietly suffering.
In this family, many struggle with job-related stress,
burnout, moral injury,
sleep disruptions, substance abuse,
and relationship problems.
In this family, we can help the helpers.
With vital information and resources,
resilient strategies,
and success stories of overcoming the obstacles.
In this family, no one is alone.
Welcome to Respond to Resilience with co-hosts retired Lieutenant David Dashinger, Dr. Stacy Raymond, and Bonnie Rumley, LCSW EMTB.
We invite you to like and subscribe YouTube, Respond to Resilience, Facebook, Responder TV, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go to our website, respondertv.com, for past episodes and guest information. So we'd like to welcome our guest, Tommy Bolin. He's a firefighter and paramedic with over 30 years of service, and he's the author of Unseen Battles, The Price of Duty in a Life of Trauma and Sacrifice. After being diagnosed with PTSD, PTSI, depression, and anxiety, Tommy turned his pain into purpose, becoming a mental health advocate for first responders, veterans, and their families. He now speaks across the country, challenging the stigma around mental health and encouraging open, honest conversations. His work aims to shift the culture of silence into one of healing, connection, and hope. LT, welcome to Respond to Resilience.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm super excited to be here today, so I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Well, thanks for your honesty, because every person that tells their story helps another person. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. And it's so true.
So I know David mentioned some of your diagnoses and the book, but we would really love to hear in your words about your mental health and what unfolded over time to get you to where you are now.
Absolutely. So I think, kind of back up a little bit. When I first came into the fire service, we all know that you were kind of told if you can't handle it, you might want to find another career. Or, I was told that suicide was for cowards and weakness. And I began to believe that myself until I got to that point in my life. And then I could understand, why people would do this kind of stuff. I was struggling probably, I really started noticing it probably around 2016. Things just weren't right. I didn't understand what was going I just knew things weren't right. And so between 2016, between that and 2019 is when it really, 2019 is when it really came to a head. I was drinking uncontrollably. I was, I was suicidal. I was isolating a lot. I was angry all the time. And, my wife obviously noticed a lot of this stuff. And I went and seeked help through our EAP program, through the fire department, that you guys know as well as I do. Sometimes when you go to these different, nothing against the therapists, but they're not, a lot of these therapists that they put you with are not trauma informed, are not culturally confident with trauma. And some of that therapy, honestly, was more detrimental to my recovery than it was help. But so in 2019, I came dangerously close to taking my life. And if it wasn't for my son walking out, which we'll get to that in a little bit, but my son walking down on me at 2:00 in the morning, and luckily, by the grace of God, he wasn't done with me yet. I've been doing this for the last several years, just kind of spreading this story of hope and healing through my journey. So,
well, we're so grateful that you're here to tell your story. And thank you for your honesty. It's very hard to open yourself up this way to people you don't know, that people are seeing you, hearing you. What has that been like for you to not only struggle with this vulnerability, but then to also make the decision to open up to save other people?
Well, so back in 2019, I ended up going to the, when everything fell apart, I ended up going to the IFS Center of Excellence for help. I was super embarrassed. I was humiliated. I was ashamed. I didn't know what my life was going to look like after that. And kind of a little story through all that. There was a very good friend of mine who, he's part of our peer support team here at my department. Mm-hmm. He goes nationally and talks to the IFF. And I reached out to him, he helped me get to the center. So when I got there, on a Monday, and they take everything from you. They take, everything, your phone, your luggage, everything, because not only is it a mental health facility, but it's also a substance abuse facility, which a lot of this stuff goes hand in hand, right? So on Friday, we would get our phone for 1 hour a day. My first phone call was to my wife. It was pretty raw. It was pretty tough conversation because I was still in the blame game. I was blaming everybody else for my problems except for the common denominator, which was me. I was really the issue. And I remember talking to Heath, and I said, "Hey," he said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Heath, I'm not good." I said, "I'm humiliated. I'm ashamed. What's my life going to look like when I get back?" I'm terrified. I didn't know what to expect when I got home. And I remember Heath saying to me, he said, "Tommy, if you would just come back and be vulnerable and talk about your story and your struggles," he goes, "you have no idea the people you're going to help." And in that moment, I'm still messed up. I'm like, "Well, Heath, I really appreciate that, right? But I'm still pretty messed up, brother. So thank you for that advice." But when I got home, honestly, I started to share my story. Because here's the thing with the fire service. They put me off on the calendar for 35 days. If you don't tell people why you're off, they're going to make up some kind of silly reason why you're off, right? The fire service, probably like most other professions, is just like a bunch of cackly old 80-year-old women that want to gossip about everything, So anyways, when I came back, I did start sharing my story, and it blew my mind. So I was the first one from my department to go get help. With me coming back and starting to open up and sharing my stories, 4 other guys came to me, and 4 other guys ended up in Maryland shortly after that. So in my mind, it just kind of opened up that almost like, hey, listen, it's okay. You're not alone. Because a lot of us, we feel alone when we do this stuff. We feel like nobody would ever understand and we're on this island by ourselves, but it's just not true. And through that, I ended up doing my brother-in-law did a video for me back in 2021. And when that video came out, it went viral. It had a lot of big websites picked it up, went all over the nation. And I had people reaching out to me from all walks of life, not just firefighters, but police officers, corrections officers, nurses, anybody who serves on the line of trauma, right? Reaching out to me. And it really opened my mind up to, man, this struggle is a lot bigger than what people really know. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. But that's when I really kind of started open it up and be vulnerable and try to break this whole stigma.
Stand by for an important announcement about our book launch coming September 2025.
All units, stand by for a confirmed structure fire with report of persons trapped.
Stop the fire! Stop the fire! EMDR in progress.
In a world where first responders save lives, this book could help save theirs by preparing you to answer when they call for help. Based on over 200 conversations and the trusted team behind the Responder Resilience podcast, Helping the Helpers gives you the tools to understand their world, speak their language, and earn their trust. This work is challenging, but deeply needed and profoundly rewarding. Their stories don't start with trauma, but too often they end there. Infused with real-life experiences, this guide reveals the human behind the badge and equips you to build a first responder-centered practice that works. From understanding their culture to the practical realities of working with first responders and chapters across the spectrum of first responder professions, you'll gain insight into the hidden struggles that shape their reality and the steps you can take to help them heal. When trust is shattered, the stakes are high. This book helps you build it before it's too late. Are you ready to make a difference? Be the resource they can count on. Get early access, including a free sample chapter and book launch invite. Go to helpingthehelpers.me to get your early access when you sign up. Helping the Helpers book launches in September 2025.
You know, we talked about it, and you guys said at the intro, you know, we're losing more first responders to suicide than in the line of duty, and it's just unacceptable. That's not weakness. That's from a system and a mindset that's broken. Until we change this mindset, on this whole word weakness, which we can talk about that here in a little bit, we're going to continue to see these numbers because we're still seeing the numbers. You know, we're doing all this advocacy right now, but we're still seeing the suicides. And I'm not even just talking about the suicides. I'm talking about the thousands of our brothers and sisters who are struggling in silence alone every day, struggling with substance abuse, failed marriages, you know, isolation, PTSD, anger, not knowing how they're going to get out of this. You know, when I was in that hole, I was like, man, there's no way I'm going to get out of this hole. Like, this is my life. And it's just not true. It's a lie that's been fed to us for a very long time.
You brought up so many things that we can unpack, and I'd love to start with this because for someone who may be in a place similar where you were and who thinks they may need to go to a place like the IAFF Center of Excellence or an inpatient facility, can you kind of pull back the curtain a little bit, like what happens there? So to kind of demystify it for someone who might think, you know, that would be where they need to go, but, you know, they kind of like that point of fear because it's a fear of the unknown. What would you like them to know that might help them to take that step?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, when I got there, I was humiliated, I was embarrassed. But the thing, and I kind of got a story about that, but the classes were good. The classes taught me why I was doing the things I was doing, and here's the other thing. When I was first getting help, you know, I had 25 years of stuff that I had to unpack. And going to a 1 hour session a week and then coming back the next week, rehashing the week before for half an hour, another half hour, it just wasn't working for me. So I had to get away to that extended period to really unpack 25 years of stuff that was just swirling in my brain all the time. And so when I got there, like I said, the classes were really good. They taught us, and it's very structured. They taught us how to deal with a lot of these struggles, the resilience part of it, the different therapies that are out there that can help you. But I tell you, honestly, one of the biggest things I got from Maryland was around 5 or 6 in the evening. We would go out at the fire pit and get a big bonfire going. And just sitting out there with sometimes 40 to 60 of my brothers and sisters around the country talking about our issues and understanding in that moment, man, I'm not alone. There's so many people out there who are struggling just like I was, who are just too embarrassed or too ashamed to honestly confront their issues. And I can tell you right now, for me, I see it now. I didn't see it then. But vulnerability is not weakness. When I was vulnerable and I opened up about my stuff, that's when the true healing really started for me, when I started confronting those demons and confronting my own self. You know, it was a battle of my own mind, honestly.
Right. You know, some of my clients have described a similar experience to you, and I think it speaks to that peer support importance. You know, when you're around that fire, you're part of a tribe, and it's your brothers and sisters. And I think when you look around and you see everyone there is struggling with similar issues, it takes that spotlight and that blame on yourself of, you know, I'm alone, or I caused this, or this is all my fault. It sort of challenges that, I think. And you look around, you say, wow, there are so many of us that feel this way. And I know that for some of the other people that I've spoken to, they have felt a weight lifted, almost like, okay, I understand how this happened. I don't have to own 100% of that bag anymore. What I do in my job is traumatic, you know, and a lot of people don't think of it that way until they really have to. And you seem like that's what you also just described to us. But the feeling of tribe that you felt there, I think it's like it.
Yeah, and that's huge. I still, you know, I went to Maryland back in 2019, and I get texts. We got 20 people that I went to Maryland with on the text train that we still talk. I just talked to them a little bit ago. We talk every day, and just that tribe of support of people. Like if you're, because here, let's be honest. When I come out of Maryland, I wasn't fixed. You know, there's no magic pill to say, hey, you're fixed. I still have struggles. I still struggle. But what I learned there, and also the support group that I have now, has been really life-changing for me. You know, where things would bother me for months on end, now I can shoot a text out, or I could use some of the stuff I learned there. And things would take 2-3 weeks, a month. I can usually take care of within about 20 minutes, and I'm right back to, hey, I'm good. Everything's good.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, you're talking about having a toolbox, so to speak. Firefighters love having tools, like we're all about tools. What are, you mentioned a couple there. What are the ones that are your go-to tools that might help you through like a rough patch at work or at home to kind of get you back into the flow relatively quickly?
Well, I could say, I think, Bonnie, we're going to get into this a little bit, but EMDR therapy was huge for me. It helped me tremendously, and I got a story about that later on. But I just, you know, I use a lot of the breathing techniques. I use a lot of the grounding techniques. And I like to tell people, you know, what worked for me may not work for you, but that's okay. I guarantee you that if you're your own advocate and you go out and you might take one trip, it might take 10 trips, but I guarantee you'll find something that resonates with you that works for you. Because we're all different. We're all different. You know, human beings, different upbringings, different chemicals in our brains. Mm-hmm. We're not all it's not a straight line for everybody. We all go through our different types of healing. And the most important thing I tell people is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up, because there's something out there that will resonate with you. So
I'd love our listeners and viewers to hear more about your experience with EMDR therapy. We talk about it a lot on our podcast because we've all had it, and Stacy and I, of course, give it to our own clients. We feel like it is the gold standard. So I'd love to hear, in your own words, for you to describe it and just share some of your highlights and the story that you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was about 2 years ago. So I had tried EMDR therapy early on, like in 2016 or 17. But like I said, I don't think the therapist, and nothing against her, I just don't think she really knew what she was doing with it. And it didn't help. It didn't help me. Fast forward to about just a couple of years ago. So I got back from Maryland. I was doing good. I've got my own things that I use, but I went to this thing called Ohio Assist that we have here in Columbus. And it's for everybody. It's for firefighter, anybody who serves on one trauma. It's for everybody. Well, part of that seminar, they allow you to sit with a mental health therapist, and they offer EMDR. So she was amazing. I was struggling. So when I go out and I talk, when I speak to fire departments, or I've been to correction facilities, police departments, and when I speak, there's one portion of my lecture that I would start getting choked up and I would get emotional. And I told her about that. And she's like, hey, you want to work on that? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I could just real quick, I could say what it was. So, you know, there were several things my suicide attempt. One night I came home with and I was just a mess. And I sat in front of my wife. I was bawling my eyes out, begging her for help. And she wanted to help me, but she didn't know what to do, The one that got me, and the one that I go back to, was when I talk about, and it might get spicy here, I apologize, because I still get choked up, and I'm not embarrassed about it. It is what it is. It's still in there, but I could deal with it better. But the one that really gets me was me and my son, my youngest son. We were on the golf. He was being dad and his buddy's DD for Father of the Year, right? Because we were drinking and golfing. And I was feeling a lot of anger back there. And I just remember him saying something so silly. And I just went off on him. And the next morning, I opened up my text messages. My wife is like, hey, listen, stop texting your son. And, when Mama Bear gets involved, you're in trouble. So yeah. So I looked back to my text, and then I just broke down my office because of the vile things that I was saying to him. And so that when that portion of my presentation came up, I would start to get emotional about it. So we started working on this thing, and she's like, hey, I'm going to ask you some questions. And I did the vibrating paddles.
Right, the tappers.
Yeah. And so I got those, and she starts this thing up, and all of a sudden she starts asking me about this time with my son. And then the floodgates just opened. It was just like I'm not talking about just cry. I'm talking about one of those ugly cries, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just bawling my eyes out. She stops me. We reset. She talks a little bit about like, hey, let's reframe it this way. We did it like 5 different times. And by the end of it, she goes, hey, Tommy, I just want you to stop and just think about how you feel right now. And honestly, the only thing that came to my mind at that point was like peace. I just got this peace. It was like all that stuff I was carrying just washed over me, and it was gone. And now, like I just told you that story, and usually back then I'd be sitting here crying. I still get choked up about it just because it still hurts from what I put my family through. But that there for me was huge for me. So now, if I have any issues or anything I'm still holding on to, or something that bothers me, I'll go back to my therapist, and we'll just, almost like just a little reset, hey, let's do a little cleanup, and let's try EMDR and see if we can't get this reframed into your chronic brain. So,
attention all first responders. Join us for the largest gathering of EMS and fire professionals in New England. Get ready for the EMS and Fire Pro Expo happening September 24th to 27th, 2025 at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Connect with over 2,500 fellow first responders. Learn from 90-plus world-class speakers and explore 300-plus continuing education opportunities designed just for you. Dive into hands-on workshops that challenge your skills and elevate your career while enjoying fine dining and entertainment. This is your chance to gain insights that could change lives, yours included. Don't miss out. Register now at emspro.org and be part of this transformational experience. See you there.
I know it's a little way around the story, and I apologize, but
no, don't apologize, because I think you sharing that story, I think a lot of people hold shame for how they've treated their children and their spouses, especially when they have had alcohol as a substance in their life that they've been dependent on. So yeah. I think it's important that people hear what you're talking about. And, it does hurt because it's your son, but it sounds like what the EMDR did for you and is supposed to do, it's supposed to make it more copable and more in the rearview mirror. It's something that's not actively disturbing you in this moment. Yes, it's sad. We can't take those feelings away, but you took a lot of the disturbance of it away. So I think it's good for people to hear that.
Yeah. And like I said, it's still there. It's just I can deal with it better now. I can cope with it better. And, just the kind of, my family's fine. They forgave me. My wife forgave me. So the last several years has been amazing. My marriage is the best it's ever been. My relationship with my kids, best it's ever been. So yeah, life is good. So, yeah.
As first responders, let's pick firefighters to be more specific. We have that firefighter identity, right? We're the rescue warriors. We show up at someone's worst day, these disasters or, challenges that people are having. And we show up with problem-solving tools, right? And that's kind of an identity in a sense, right? Like where, we got the answers. And to describe with your EMDR story is kind of taking off that, that armor and admitting that, we are also human beings behind the badge. Can I talk a little bit about the shift when you're able to kind of express those emotions that we kind of push down as first responders? Like, how's that a game changer for you?
Well, obviously you hit the nail right on the head. We're fixers, right? Mm-hmm. We don't need help, which is BS. We can't be the best helpers if we're not mentally fit to do it ourselves. And that EMDR stuff, like I said, it just really opened up. It got rid of a lot of that baggage that I had been carrying for so long, and it helped me now be a better person, a better husband, a better father. It helps me be a better friend. It helps me be a better advocate for what we're doing now. And it's just that vulnerability piece that we really need to work on, because, we're, like I said, when I first came into fire service, we looked at a lot of people like me that was struggling. They're like, oh, that guy's weak. That guy's mental. We don't, and you'd always get that label. And it's just, it's so much crap, because, and I use this. You guys care if I share a little story, or if I go off here a little bit, or is that okay?
These are great.
Yeah. So when I go out and talk now, I heard this a while back, and it really resonated with me. I really have this this word weakness that just hit me one day. I'm like, where's this even coming from, right? Yeah. And so I really kind of dove into this whole word weakness. And do you guys know, I think what we do is we get weakness mixed up with the word meekness. You guys ever heard meekness? Mm-hmm. So meekness, the Greek meaning of meekness is actually power under control. If you can think of a war horse that's trained for battle, trained to respond to high stress situations, but having so much power that it can destroy anything in its path. That's who we are. There's nothing weak about us. Mm-hmm. We see the worst in humanity and what it has to throw at us, and we still move forward and we still soldier on. That is not weakness. We have weak moments in our lives, and that's okay. It's called being a human being, right? And it's okay to be human. We're not supermen. We're not super women. We do some crazy stuff, and we see some really bad things, but we're inside, we're still human beings. And so I always tell people, I'm like, listen, don't mistake my weakness for meekness, because there's nothing weak about what we do. And a lot of people need to understand that this is not weakness. This is being a human being. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. That's
okay.
That's something that you really need to show that delineation, right? And especially along those lines, can you speak to how this has changed you as a firefighter, as an officer, like going through this mental health journey, doing EMDR, going to the Center of Excellence? Do you have any takeaways that you can share in terms of how it's changed your perspective as a firefighter?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. Now that I've been through it, and I've come out the other side, read the book, and everything, I'm more in tune with my people. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm more in tune. I know, like, we live together a third of our lives. So if a guy's coming in having a bad day, I know it right now. And I'll talk to him, and I know if a guy comes in, 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and it's just not the same, that's a change in behaviors. Now I'm more in tune to that. And honestly, I've had some of my people that's happened to where I've seen this change in behavior, and they don't want to come to you because obviously they don't want to appear weak. And I'll call them, so I'm like, hey man, I feel like something's off, man. Is everything okay? And you'd be amazed at how much, when you just ask that question of how much, they will open up to you. And yeah, I mean, I was right on. They were struggling, and they were trying to figure out how to work through some stuff. And I would give them resources. I would give them some of my techniques that I do, and how much it's changed. People just from actually asking that question, just being more observant to those changes in behavior and asking that question. And I've seen it happen so many times, and it's been awesome on this side of it to be able to help people do that.
Boxing has the power to change lives, especially for first responders. Fight Camp embraces your journey, whether you're stepping into the ring for the first time, returning after a break, or aiming to elevate your fitness. Harness the strength of boxing to release stress, build resilience, and connect with a supportive community, one punch at a time. For free shipping and a free month of membership, go to joinfightcamp.com/shop and use the code RRP1. That's RRPONE.
I even run into people when I'm out, I some of my friends are like, man, is everything okay? Is something wrong? And then my friend, not even a first responder, man, I'm dealing with something really bad right now. And then we'll sit there and have a 45-minute talk on life and mental health and why you're feeling this way. And it's just really helped me be more in tune with people and watching for those changes behaviors and just trying to be helpful to. Because here's the thing, one thing that helped me big time, I know a lot of imposter syndrome. I never felt like I was worth anything. I never wanted to appear weak. I never wanted to let people down. But when I got to the point in my life to where I really don't care what people think about me now, it was huge for me. Now, don't take that wrong. I care about people. I want people to live their most happy and fulfilling lives. But I don't care what people think about me because, let's be honest, not everybody's has your back. Not everybody's, I don't know what people are saying behind my back. It's really none of my business what they're saying. Once I got to that point in my life where I really don't care what people think about me, and I know in my heart I'm doing the right thing, that was big time for me. It was so freeing for me. And then that's how I live my life now.
Well, I think those are great points. And the first one you made is, people ask you, they ask us about the changes that have to be made to make things better in our first responder world, right? And it's so ironic that one of them is just so simple. It doesn't cost any money. You don't need a program. You don't need training. It's literally being a human being and checking on people. And, it hit me being a trauma therapist and then also being an active leader in EMS at the same time. What I started to do was check out my crew before I checked out any equipment, because that piece of equipment is not even going to be to good use, or they're not going to be able to use it if their head's not on straight. So I think for everyone listening, we can all make that small change starting this moment. That doesn't cost money. You don't need big, wild programming or funding from the town or the city. Be human. Care about people. Ask them. Be genuine. And I think if more of us do that and more people be vulnerable, there's a fear there sometimes. Like, well, what if they say something I can't handle, or I don't know what to do with what they're going to say to me? But you know what? Then you find someone who does. Because you might be the only person that ever asks that person how they're doing in their whole life.
Yeah. And that's the thing I tell people too, though. You still have to be kind of cautious on who you vent to, right? Like not everybody has your best interest in mind.
Of course.
But we have a really good peer support team at our department now that people know. They know they come to me. It's supposed to stay between me and them. And I tell people, just be careful who you vent to. Find somebody you trust and go vent to that person, and you'd be amazed at how much they'll that person will understand, and that person will allow you to open up and get that stuff out. And it's going to stay between you two because we truly care. It's like you said, it's so simple. It costs nothing to ask the person, you doing okay today, man? I just noticed something's off, and most people won't get offended about it because honestly, they probably do have something going on, right? And they just want to tell somebody. They got all this stuff bottled up, and they just like, man, I just want to tell somebody what I'm going through, and I want somebody to understand. And that's the biggest thing I run into still today is people are like, man, Tommy, thanks for talking to me. I just felt so alone. I just felt like nobody would understand what I'm going through. I'm like, brother, you're not alone. And believe me, there are so many more people going through this than you can imagine.
Yeah.
LT, what you're describing, in my opinion, really is leadership in action. It's kind of leadership that doesn't necessarily get taught in, schools for officers. It's not in the books, but that's the fundamental part of being someone who is looking out for your people, your crew, for their quality of life and who they are as human beings. How can we get better at that? Whether you're looking at it from the top down, chain of command, buy-in from the union, what have you found works the best in terms of collaboration across the ranks and the rank and file?
It does have to come from the top down, and it also has to come from the bottom up. And I struggle with this all the time. It goes from department to department to department. Our department does a great job with it, but I know other departments that, with their leadership and the administration trail that goes on, they're terrified to say anything. And it's we need to get the right leaders in the right place. We talk about this whole word brotherhood and sisterhood. Let's be brothers and sisters. Let's truly care about our people. And, the crazy thing I'm dealing with right now is we still do not talk about mental health in the schools, in the fire academies, the paramedic schools. Now, some of them do. I've had schools ask me to come talk, but it's not part of the curriculum. It's just because that instructor understands, hey, listen, this is a big piece of this job. And they have me come talk to their students, and I commend them for that. But there's other ones out there, like I said, it's not part of the curriculum. And I've approached my state reps. I've got a state rep I've been talking to. I've approached my union. I had something happen. Oh gosh, it's been about a month ago now. We had a big union conference here in Ohio, and I asked one of my union guys to talk to the main union guy. And I said, hey, listen, can I just get 15 minutes up here just to talk about this mental health epidemic that we have going on in our profession? Mm-hmm. And I basically got told, well, that's not part of our political agenda this year. So me being me, I went to the National. I wrote a letter to the National, and the National kicked it back down. And I ended up talking to a very awesome individual who is part of the Ohio IFF. And we said that we had the same thoughts. He was part of the mental health part of Ohio, and we had the same thoughts and the same things. But I just didn't realize at that point of how slow things move in government. It's like, for us to change the curriculum in Ohio, we have to change it actually at the government level.
Wow. To
add hours to the Ohio Revised Code. And I apologize for going to the national, but I just wanted to sit and talk to somebody and see where we're at. It's really. And be honest, it pissed me off, right? How could you say the one thing that's killing us the most is not part of our political priorities right now? Now, don't get me wrong. These guys are doing amazing things with the cancer research, the cancer, the presumptive cancer stuff in Ohio, and they're doing a lot of really good stuff. I just didn't know about all the stuff that they're doing because nobody would talk to me about it. But we really need to get these kids when they're younger. If we're going to break this stigma and this whole thing that comes with this whole mental health thing, we got to start fresh in the schools. We got to let these guys know, hey, listen, this is the stuff you're going to see. This is the stuff that's going to happen. Here's some resilient stuff that you can use to get through a lot of this stuff. Here's some resources. Because I never had, the IFF Center of Excellence came out in 2017. This was 2019 when I went to it. I had no clue it even existed. None. Until I Googled all my firefighter mental health, that popped up on the screen. Why are these things not flooding the fire departments or even the police departments? They have their own facilities, Harbor Grace out in Maryland. Why aren't we not flooding this information to every department, every entity, every school to let these guys know, hey, listen, if I start struggling, maybe I could go to this place, or maybe I could call these people. And I think it's not only important for the first responder, I think they should bring the families in, because that's one thing we forget about is the families. This wasn't a me issue. This was a family issue, right? And just for the families to be educated, hey, listen, if you start seeing this kind of stuff with your first responder, maybe you need to have those hard conversations with them. And I think it's so important. It's got to come from the top and the bottom. And we got to do something because, like I said, we're still seeing the numbers. Yeah, I talk to people all the time, the thousands of people out there who are still struggling the way I did back in 2019.
Well, bless you for all you're doing in your advocacy. You're going the extra mile, clearly. And I want to make sure we highlight your book before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Tommy, tell us a little bit about the book, where people can find it, and what you'd like to share about it.
Yeah, so Unseen Battles. It came out about 3 months ago. It's Price of Duty, a life of trauma and sacrifice. And so when I wrote this book, I had talked to somebody a while back about my story. And there's like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, man, there's no way. I don't know. I thought about it. I'm like, I don't. If you didn't know me, my wife's like, he can barely spell his name. I was going to write a book, right? So. But yeah, so I didn't want to make it about me. It's actually stories. It's my story mixed in with stories from other first responders, firefighters, police officers, paramedics. I've got a section on corrections. It's for anybody who serves on the line of trauma. Obviously, I've got a mental health professional in there that talks about a lot of stuff we go through. I got a lot of the stuff like the trauma of the brain, how a lot of the stuff changes the brain. Mm-hmm. And I also want to back up here a little bit when I talk about like the things we go through, the trauma. It's not just the trauma, especially with firefighters. It's the trauma combined with the sleep deprivation and the insomnia and the high stress and the stressful situations. It's some of the administration betrayals that a lot of people talk to you about. It is a combination of everything that finally got me in the end. It wasn't just the traumas. It was everything combined. And this book kind of addresses a lot of that, and it gives a lot of really good resources. It gives a lot of really good resilient techniques and grounding techniques that you can use. And honestly, it's just opening up, saying, hey, listen, you're not alone, right? Mm-hmm. You're not alone. And there's a lot of people out there, and there's several people in my book who have gone through the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And you're not alone. And that's really the biggest premise behind the book, is just telling people, listen, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tommy, thank you for sharing about your book. I had one more question before we wrapped up.
Absolutely.
Because I really want to see you get fired up about this. Do you think there are enough mental health clinicians around who understand this culture to be able to help them?
No, not 100% no. We have some really good ones out there, don't get me wrong. But like I said earlier, the EAP portion of it, they just kind of might give you a family therapist who has no idea what. In my book, I talk about that. I had one guy from Sacramento, California, a really good friend of mine that I was in Maryland with. He's a chief. Mm-hmm. He said the first time he went and sat down with a mental health professional, I started sharing my stories with her. She started bawling her eyes out. And he's like, here I am. Now I'm traumatizing her. Why do I want to go in there and traumatize her? You know, he says, so at that point, I'm like, I'm not going back. And it's a shame. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, to us here, it's another part of the puzzle that we have to fix, right? We're all fighting that stigma, but, we've started to take that turn here, and we started the Clinicians Masterclass so that we can bring therapists in to help build the cultural competency out there. So
good job.
Thank you for promoting that in your world too, though, because the more we talk about all of these issues that are working against all of us, I think the better it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I talk about that in my book too. This book is not just for first responders, just for mental health professionals to understand the mind of a first responder. So
great. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And just to tie it all together, based on an interview we have coming out shortly, in a parallel universe, mental health clinicians, as they're going through their training, don't get any background on first responders and the struggles, the culture of the world that first responders live and work in. So just like we need to address the recruits for fire, police, EMS, 911 with mental health, we also need to address the mental health professionals to introduce them to our world. Absolutely. Through their training, which is absolutely not happening very much. So LT, where can people find you, find the book, any social media, websites, stuff like that?
So if you go to Facebook, it's Unseen Battles by Tommy Bolin on Facebook. You can also go to Amazon. You can type in Unseen Battles by Tommy Bolin. My book will come up. Those are the two big ones. I've got a website right now I'm working on. It's kind of I'm kind of rebranding a little bit, so it'll be out here pretty soon. And just reach out.
Right. Well, we appreciate all you're doing in the world in various ways, and course, we appreciate you coming here, sharing your story with our community, and for going deep. I think really valuable stuff. So keep doing the good work. Keep getting out there. It's all good. And thank you for supporting mental health for the brothers and sisters.
Hey, thank you guys for everything you do too. I appreciate it. We need more people like you guys doing this work. So
you're welcome. And thanks for fighting for our brothers and sisters. I like that story about you doing what had to be done and talking to people. That's great.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure, guys.
Remember, like and subscribe YouTube, Responder Resilience, Facebook, Responder TV, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go to our website, respondertv.com, for past episodes and guest information. Until the next time, stay safe, be kind to yourself. Take care.